try this. This is Cam with the Big Bad Beetle Bros, and I am just going to throw together this real quick video because I've just been having a really fun time with the Zord Ascension project, the ZAP Astro Megazord, aka the Astro Mega Ship, that just got released, or just went out and I guess shipped as of this previous week. As of the time of recording, today's St. Patrick's Day, actually, so happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. So, I just wanted to do kind of a real quick video about this because I've really this is like the best figure toy collectible or whatever that I've gotten in a long time. Really had a good time with it. Have not been able to stop transforming it back and forth the last day and a half that I've had it. This specific Megazord means a lot to me. I have a lot of history with this Zord and the original one that you can see kind of here just off to the side. So I want to do a little bit of a comparison, a little bit of walkthrough, and just a little bit of a review of this figure and talk a little bit about it on camera, I guess, because it's just been something that I've really, really enjoyed playing around with recently. So I'm just going to kind of get right into it. I'll actually bring up the box here. Pull this guy off frame a little bit and pull up the box here. Pick up my camera. Everything about this guy is huge, so it's a little tricky to keep everything in frame. So this is the front of the box. It's got this beautiful slip cover on it. Here on the side, just this really gorgeous vector art action pose design of the Astro Megazord, part of the Lightning collection, of course. All the accessories and stuff. Little pose. Action shot of the actual figure. Just as dynamic. I'm not going to take it, I'm not going to undo the box just because there is a lot of stuff in there. But I have everything out. So first, just to get it out of the way, they include... see if I can change my field of view. There we go. Hopefully that's focusing. So they include these little mini Rangers. And I love these damn things. So they are to scale with the rest of the Zord, which is ridiculous. I think, and I'm probably wrong on this, I think they're going off of roughly like a 1 to 144 scale, if I remember. I think it's roughly what like a high grade Gundam kit is, or Zoids. A lot of the Zoids kits are around 1 to 144. So I mean, you know, that you figure a Power Ranger is roughly 6 feet tall, and they don't even cover the toe of this Megazord. So I love that they have these little guys. There's not any like spots for them to kind of like plug in on the Zord. I kind of wish that there were spots, maybe where there was a peg or something you could set them around, because as it stands, they're all kind of doing that morphing call pose, or like they're calling the Megazord, where they've got their hands raised into the sky, and they're calling into their morpher. Very cool. There's very little detail. They're kind of like a next level down of the board game minifigures that have been coming out, because they're incredibly small. They're maybe a 1/4 inch tall, very thin, very frail. I am, exceedingly nervous about losing them or breaking an arm off if I mess around with them too much. So I kind of scoot those guys to the side. But the piece de resistance. I'm struggling to get this guy into frame in a way that I like, so bear with me. I'm not a camera person. I'm barely an audio person. So I've kind of rigged the shield on here, but as I look at everything, I'm going to kind of try to do a little bit of a comparison. So this is the shield. Beautiful of me to just launch things onto the ground. So this is the shield. It transforms identically the same way the original one does. It's got a little spring-loaded bit here on the back, and it folds so that it can clip on to the underside of the Mega Ship. So it just clicks. Very satisfying. A nice sturdy handle that pops out here for it to hold. It comes with a holding hand that fits nicely right there. I'm not going to put it in just yet. But it also has a little clip here that you can see. And that clips nicely onto the wheel that is exposed on the arm when transformed. That's something that the original couldn't do, and I honestly could not tell you if that was ever done in the show. But I love that. It's just that little bit of extra posability. It can let you have the blaster and the sword both held in the hand at the same time. Now, if we look at the original, you can see quite a bit smaller, maybe close to half the diameter of the ZAP shield. Exact same transformation, right? Pop it out, flip it in, and there you go. Doesn't have the clip here, still has the 4 clips and the 2 pegs here. Little handle that folds out. Mine's really loose. It's just, on a plastic peg. But there's the shield. And forgive me, I don't know the technical official canon terms for any of these. I'm sure it's like Astro Mega Shield and Astro Saber and all that stuff. I don't remember any of those. It's been a long time since I've watched In Space, and I doubt that they even used all the terms all the time. So, starting on the original, this is the blaster. You can see I am missing the kind of retro rockets, the extra rocket bits that would attach here on the shins and here on the sides of the blaster. Most of the accessories, except for the shield and the blaster, all the accessories except for the shield and the blaster from my original one are missing, and have been since I was a child. So, pretty nice. Blaster folds up nicely, becomes a kind of a booster rocket for the Mega ship, the Mega 01. So, that is the blaster on that side. Now, for the new ZAP one, really clean panel lines, really clean design, nice little splash of red. The rockets are a nice silver. The gun barrel top part has a nice silver on it. Really stands it apart from just kind of like the abject white. I am hoping that this does not yellow. I've actually been really lucky with only the kind of soft rubber parts yellowing on my original one. I've seen some really bad cases of yellowing. The hands and stuff have yellowed quite a bit, but not anything compared to some that I've seen. So, cross your fingers, knock on wood for that. Does have a little peg here on the back, and actually that peg on this version is how you attach the ship. So you transform the head, and I know I'm starting in robot mode. To me, that's just easier instead of starting at ship. So pegs on there instead of it's a little less satisfying. I won't lie to you. The original has a very nice, almost like a molded clip into there. Very satisfying. And then on this one, you're just kind of pegging in to looks like a 5mm port. So, which is fine. It still works, right? But it is what it is. In general, I prefer the original, the mechanism, transformation mechanism and everything on the head ship, the Mega 1 ship. I prefer the original. It's way more satisfying. It clicks together way better. This one is a lot of just like held together by pressure, which is fine. But it will kind of start to kind of come apart a little bit. It's not the worst problem to have, but it's a slight annoyance. So that's the, I guess the blaster as its kind of rocket booster bonus mode. Go ahead and put the head back on here. And we'll talk more about the transformation of the head and all that stuff here in a second. So the same area where the peg comes on is where the handle pops out. Very nice molded detail on the handle. Nice little grip points, kind of a trigger point there. And the barrel folds out there. Much nicer detail than the original. Very smooth, very clean. Great silver. Doesn't look like it's going to wear on the sides from moving it around. Looks like there's enough clearance all around to avoid that. Very happy with it. And very tight tolerances there. Now, another thing that freaks me out on this is these pegs here. The way that this clicks in and the way that it clicks into the shins, we'll get to in Astro Megaship mode, freaks me out because they feel like very thin clips both on the blaster and the shins and on the male end that goes in here. Makes me very nervous, and I'm sure that that's mostly me and not actually a concern. I've heard a few cases on Twitter and stuff of people having problems with the shins or with the clips on this figure. So I'm being a little overly cautious all around. It is expensive enough to not want to like really roughhouse with and mess up too much. Unlike my original, which you could like drop from a building and it would largely be okay. Other accessories are just the hands. Comes with two kind of wow hands, little jazz hand action, and a grippy hand and a fist and a closed fist for each side, left and right. Thing I have noticed, and I've heard other people talk about this, for the sword is the exact tolerance that it needs to be to fit into the gripped hand. So these just pop right off. It's just a little ball socket. It's a slightly textured ball socket that just fit right in. The sword is beautiful. It's got really nice gold detailing there on the little envelope symbol. Unlike the original, which I no longer have, it is double molded on both sides, clamshelled design. I really like that it is painted all the way through. Black handle, silver tip, the hilt, I guess. And then the sword feels... I almost thought it was die-cast metal when I opened it up. It's not, it's plastic. It is... I can't tell if it's slightly warped or if that's me in the camera lens. I think it is maybe a little bit bent, which could be dealt with just by running it under some hot water probably, or a hairdryer at a distance. I will, if I ever want to pull this sword out of this handle, I will probably have to take this to a hairdryer very lightly from a distance to loosen that grip up enough to be able to get this out, because the thumb is molded to the pointer finger, so you cannot separate the hand to get the weapons out. So this is an extremely sturdy hold, but that does mean that the right hand, for me, in my case at least, is permanently the sword hand, which I'm okay with, personally. So I'm just going to put the closed fist on the right hand. You do have to use a little bit of force, but like I said, the hands are kind of a nice, sturdy rubber, so I don't have a problem with it. Now, what I want to do real quick while I've got them in robot mode is I want to do a comparison of posability, because I've seen some people complain about it, or talk about it at least, and I agree, but I also understand where Hasbro and everybody's coming from in terms of what you can do with this design without making it non-transformable or feel flimsy or cheap or like it's going to snap in pieces. So, the original is like super typical Megazord posability, right? Head does not move whatsoever. Arms up and down, all the way around, 360. Very nice chunk, chunk, chunk. Technically a knee bend, bleh, although it is part of the transformation. Technically a toe bend, although it is part of the transformation. And technically hips, although again, part of the transformation. And same 360 at the hip. You really can't get any poses in with this guy just because that's not the way that the legs work. There's not quite enough. You're missing about 2 extra joints to get it really poseable. No hip movement. As I said, no neck or head movement. No wrists or anything like that. So you move the arms up and down, and that is your posability. Super typical for a Megazord, especially a single unit Megazord, I guess, one that isn't a combiner. Now for this guy. This guy has, I think, the perfect amount of additional posability that you would ask for from this original mold. So the arms have the same ratcheting, clickety-clack motion, but then you also get an outward ratcheting bend here. Can't go very far. Really just one click out. You could probably make a second one, and then you get an elbow. But because of just this, the forearm there and the way that that moves, you're just not going to get it for it. Now, you can also ratchet it one in, not really, I take that back. It doesn't want to, and I'm not going to pressure it. You also get a inward movement here. It's kind of part of the transformation, but it's also feels like an intentional movement, so you kind of get him in a boxing pose almost with the, you can kind of bash his knuckles together. You do get motion at the forearm, and then of course 360 motion at the wrist, because again they're just on a ball socket. And I think that is honestly a great amount of posability on the forearms. Could it be better? Yes. Do I want it to be better? Not necessarily. I think that the sturdiness and all of that really goes for it. Now, on the head, let's zoom in a little bit. So, on the head, I'm going to raise you up a little bit. There we go. It is on a ball joint. Little cap comes up. It is on a ball joint, so you can get turning. And you can probably turn 360, but I'm not going to try. And it can look a little bit up and a little bit down. But it doesn't really like to, just because it has this huge spaceship on the top of it. So, that is, again, in my opinion, as much posability as is needed on this guy's head. It's more than you get on the average Megazord. I don't know if it's more than is on the other ZAP Megazords. I don't have any of them. I don't plan on getting them. But that's a nice amount of posability, in my opinion. Now, things you get, again, that are different than the classic. Full 360 hip or waist motion. Just enough to get some dynamic posing in. Now, these skirts are also fully posable. They move, so you can get some nice knee action. Identical, really solid ratchet on the knee. Solid ratchet on the toe. And then a soft ratchet on the hip, outward. Solid chunk ratchet on the hip, forward. It is a little tricky to figure out, like make sure that it's ratcheted completely one way or the other. And you can get a little bit of karate kick action on this guy. You can kind of balance him kicking out one way or the other, but it is a little tricky. So I don't mess too much with it. But the legs are basically, except for the outward movement, basically identical. I say except for the outward movement. They're basically identical. The legs, other than the strengths of the ratchets and the size of the joints, really an identical posability to the classic one. Now, mine has a slight thing that I've noticed, and I think this is just like my ability to tell when a ratchet is ratcheted or not. Mine tends to kind of lean backwards in a weird way, and I don't know why. It's not noticeable really, especially if you're looking up at it, which as big as this thing is, if it's sitting on a shelf or something, you're mostly going to be looking up at it. But when you look down at it or you look at it head on, you can sometimes tell that it is tilting back just a degree or two, just enough to kind of be look a little cattywampus sometimes, but I don't really notice it too much. So let's go ahead and transform. I'm actually going to transform the original first, because obviously it's easier, it's faster. So Astro Megaship, or the Megaship, comes off, folds together, very satisfying. Little click, zoom. All right, shoulders. I'll lower the camera here. Boop. Shoulders fold up, back. Fold those little wings out. Then the hips out. Rotate. Clamshell around. Rinse and repeat. And then these click in here. Shield clicks in. Clicks in here on the back. I always get it upside down. Clicks in. Little clip goes on the outside there. And then here on the feet, you can close these up when it's in robot mode. Gives it a little bit more stability, especially on the big version. It has identical clips to these. But you fold them down so that you can slide the ship in there in the port, and then clamshell the top over it. Now, the original has some electronics. And that's about it. And I think it actually has one more noise, technically. Yeah, so that's the noise that would usually make when you put the head on in robot mode. It's actually like one of the only original toys I have that I keep the batteries in, just because they've not corroded yet. That does mean that is why this has a clear plastic red with the two buttons here, versus the chrome red on the ZAP version. And the blaster can go under here for storage, and also that. If I had, there'd be rockets here, and there would be rockets here. And I don't think the Zord had a storage point. It doesn't on the new one, and I don't think it did on the original either. So, on this guy, a little bit more involved, just because this thing is huge. I'll actually pull out my handy dandy tape measure here. On the top of the crest, this guy is basically 15 and a half inches tall, almost 16 inches tall, roughly 40 centimeters, maybe 39 or 38 centimeters tall. Big honkin' robot. Big honkin' robot. For a slight comparison, this is MPO1, Masterpiece Optimus Prime, and he's easily 2-3 inches taller than MPO1. I don't have anything else that's a good reference, I apologize. I guess you can see this is Studio Series Perceptor, and he's not even up to the knee. Not even up to the knee standing up. So, big fella. Big fella. Alright, now for the transformation. Taking the head off, identical. The back part clips in here, back into the ship, and then it kind of like slides into the front and clips down. So you're going to take that off. Then the head has a little peg here, pegs in to the top of the head, and you're just going to move that down, and there's a different peg that pegs in right into the same spot. Now that little ball joint that moves the head around does make this a little tricky to line up the front and back half of the ship. I do love the detailing, panel lining and everything on the ship, the little gold details, the fact that the pegs on the back look like booster rockets just really adds a lot And one thing on this ship that I love, tiny cockpit with tiny Rangers. And these Rangers are identical in scale to the standing Rangers we have separately. And there's a little, let's see it, there's a little computer screen in there that shows kind of like the stats and a radar and a monitor. I love it. It's so cool, so fun. I don't know if the scaling actually works to how it's meant to be scaled on the show, but it works for me. I really dig it. Yeah, so that's the head transformed. Now, what I do, and I don't know if this is the order, I don't remember if this is the order the instructions go, and I'm technically going in reverse from the instructions because it ships as the Mega Ship. So, identical to the original, the arms click up. Everything on this is very solid. Clicks in, very nice, very solid. Love it. And we click these guys back. And just fold that back. That also clips in similarly to the original. We're going to fold these guys up just like the original. Making sure that you guys can see me. Alright. Well, what I do is I fold these guys up. I think the instructions say to do that. And then rotating these hips around can be a little tricky. It makes me nervous, but I'm not worried that I'm going to break it. I'm just worried that I'm going to like scrape plastic on plastic and damage some paint or something. So you're going to want to kind of bend it out forward and then out to the side. And then continue to rotate this silver inner hip as you rotate the rest of the leg. But you really got to watch for this red fin here, because it will kind of get in the way. So you've got to kind of bend the leg as you bend the hip to make sure that you don't scrape up against that red plastic. And you'll get that flush or a parallel to there, and then you just kind of got to make sure that you line that up. Then you can put the flat back down. This will fold perfectly, fit into the seams of the chest, and then that part is done. So then we just do the identical thing for the other side. I can't really reiterate enough how much I love the heavy, satisfying ratchets on the legs, especially for the transformation. That down, fold that in, and these do they do clip in. There is a clip there in the middle, but you don't even feel it or hear it really, which I think is honestly perfect, because it just shows like how well engineered it is. And then these guys clip in there, and then that joint I was talking about on the leg, on the arms, those fold back, and that's where the shield goes. And what you're going to do with the shield is there are these 2 pegs on top. There's 4 pegs, 2 on top. And make sure that these are straight up and down in the middle, and that these are on the top facing the head. Go ahead and line that in, and it'll just click right into place. I've heard of people having trouble with this, and I'm not sure if it's because it feels a little backwards, because you might flip the shield one way or the other when you're transforming it from shield mode to storage mode. But I've heard of a few people having trouble not getting this to fit in. I don't know if it's an alignment thing or just a quality control thing. I know Hasbro has, their tendency to have problems with quality control. And what I do is I rotate the hands around so that the fists are facing the bottom. In theory, you could remove the hands entirely. I don't like parts formers necessarily, even though Megazords are kind of always parts formers. So I don't like having extra parts laying around if I don't have to. So I leave the fists on. And then we just flip these little inner leg bits down, and they kind of click into place. And then the ship This is another part that I actually prefer the original on, because the original has really sturdy clips, kind of like the transformation clips on the rest of the ship, or on the legs. This one just has these 2 pegs, and they peg into the holes in the same spot on the front there. And then you're just going to ratchet this in, and it does get tricky. And I should have, see, the head will kind of pop out sometimes. And this is, I think, mostly just on me, mostly my impatience. But you kind of have to hold the ship together while you do that so that you can make sure. And then there is a little clip right here in the middle. And that just clicks that whole thing together. Very satisfying. The original doesn't have that. The original is just held together by the ratchets, which works perfectly fine. There's no issues. And then you can see the little crest sticks out there on the top. And then you just turn the turrets to face that way. Now I'm going to lower you guys down a second. So that we can get more on the level. Ish. Good enough. Actually, let's go up a bit for a second. Okay. So, as you can see, ignore my myriad of cords going everywhere. This was a fairly impromptu decision to record. Alright, so almost twice the size the ZAP Megazord is compared to the original. Now, as I said, these kind of booster rockets, they click in here on the sides. It's a very sturdy click. I'll let you guys hear that. Very sturdy, very satisfying. Still makes me anxious as all hell. That's just me, 100%. I know that. And then on the bottom of the blaster here, and you can stick the gun out, and you go to the shield. Same spot as on the original. There are 2 spots, and you can just stick that on there, and then you get a big gun on the belly of the beast. So, this is the transformed Astro Megaship. The only other thing that it has that I think is incredibly interesting and worth showing off in full capacity is you flip up the chest where the electronics are on the original, and it is a cockpit with, again, to scale of the 5 main Power Ranger team. It's very cool. I love the scaling. There's not like a monitor decal or anything on here for this one. I think that's okay. It is a really kind of like spacious little area in here. And I don't know. I just really enjoy this like little detail. It totally was not necessary to have 2 cockpits, one on the full ship and one on the mini one. But I love it. The wheels roll really well. It's very smooth. For a higher end thing like this, I honestly was kind of expecting it to not have wheels. But, I mean, the original did, so it makes sense that the new one would. The chrome on here covers the entire area, which is more accurate to the original, to the, on-screen version. Chrome all the way around here, all the way around on the nose, and then kind of on the booster rockets. And there's just some really good detailing on this whole ship. I mean, just the panel line work, the molding all around it. It feels like a high-end Millennium Falcon toy. It feels like something that Power Rangers wouldn't get, and it feels very much like an import. Like this would be something from Bandai Japan for Mega Ranger, the Sentai that this is based on. And I don't know, it's so it's really weird to me that this is a Power Ranger product that was released when the other ZAP Megazords have been the original Mighty Morphin Dino Megazord and the Dragon Zord. And I love it. This is my favorite Megazord. In Space is not necessarily my favorite season, but this has always been my favorite Megazord. The reason that I had to bite the bullet and jump on the reason I had to, my justification for spending the money on this guy and biting the bullet and pre-ordering it a couple months ago so that I could, have this in hand, largely was to have it with my original, because I think they look really look really nice together. You can have one robot mode and one in ship mode, and they pair really nicely, especially because they look so identical. And I think the original Astro Megaship and Astro Megazord toy nailed the design so well. You really don't have to do much to step it up a notch. You scale it up a little bit, you give it a little bit more detail, you give it a little bit better chrome, stronger ratchets, slightly more posability, and that's really all you have to do. It's really just this just feels like it was made with 2020's toy manufacturing technology and a slightly bigger budget. I don't know how much the original cost in today's money, let alone in 90s money. This pre-ordered for, I think, $168 on Big Bad Toy Store. And it feels worth it. It feels worth that amount. Toys have been increasing in pricing lately, especially Hasbro stuff. $160 isn't going to get you a Titan Master Transformer, but this feels on par with a Titan Master figure. The couple that I've have played with in hand or held or picked up at conventions, specifically like Trypticon and Metroplex, those feel on the same quality level as this ZAP Megazord. And I think that's wild. I think that's really cool. I'm glad that it was at a, in my opinion, relatively decent price point. God only knows if the post pre-order aftermarket is going to maintain those numbers. I don't think I would have picked this up if I hadn't gotten it for the price that I did. I don't think I would have, if it had capped $200, I don't think I would have snagged this guy. Just being completely honest. But the Astro Megaship was the very first, it's the first toy I remember getting, period. It's the first Megazord I had. It's the first transforming robot that I had that I know of. It was I remember opening it on Christmas. It was, I think, the first year my older brother had moved to Texas, and we had gone down to celebrate Christmas with him and his family down there. And I remember opening, he got me this, and I think a stuffed animal or something. But I remember opening the original Astro Megaship and just absolutely adoring it. And I had a huge Megazord collection, huge Power Ranger and Transformer collection throughout high school and college. And then for my last semester of college, I sold basically everything to pay for my last couple semesters. And this was the one thing that I absolutely, it was not on the table. I couldn't take it to cons when I was selling at cons. I couldn't sell it to the store that ended up buying my car full of inbox Megazords and stuff. I just couldn't part with it. It has so much sentimental value to me. It's, been with me through so many trials and tribulations and everything else. And now to have a representative upgrade of kind of the adult version of the Astro Megaship, while I'm the adult version of me, I guess. And it just feels perfect. And it felt like it was a capstone in a way of my collecting career, I guess you would say it, and my young adulthood to, or youth to adulthood in a little bit. And it has a unjustified sentimental value to me that I'm sure it doesn't have to everybody and won't have to a lot of people. But In Space is the first Power Ranger season I remember watching on television as it was airing as an incredibly young child. And these are the first toys that I remember getting. I remember sitting on Santa's lap asking for the talking Silver Ranger that came with the Super Silverizer, the Morpher. And I remember getting this from my brother, and it meant the world to me then, and it means a lot to me now. And the ZAP Astro Megaship arrived the day after I got back from visiting my brother and his family in Texas, and I don't know, some synchronicity to that just really made me want to do this little video and just this little comparison and talk about it with you guys, and just share that with everybody, because hot damn, I love this thing. Like, I don't know, I don't think I'm gonna really get into doing too many more toy reviews. I do have a few things that I kind of want to do some videos about. I still need to do a video about the premium Bandai B Commander from from Juku B Fighter, aka the Beetle Bonder from the first season of Big Bad Beetleborgs. It's been about a year and I haven't done that, but I promise I'm gonna get on it. I'm not getting any more of the premium Bandai B Fighter stuff. Just it's a bit too cost prohibitive. This was right in my price range at the time. And then immediately became out of my price range because we just had card troubles. So, that, it's the world. That's how it goes. But yeah, I just wanted to share that with everybody, and I'll post this around on the YouTubes and all of that jazz. I wanted to give a huge shout out to Don't Ever Stop Collecting, a DES fan on, DES, RES fan on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. John sent me a huge box of goodies from the Hasbro warehouse sale, including the Studio Series Perceptor that I used for scale, which I've just absolutely been loving. Also sent the VHS tape box, a Megazord, original Dino Megazord, and this dual set of the Zeo cogs to go with my Zeo Red that I won on a Twitter contest. So, huge shout out to John with Don't Ever Stop Collecting. And yeah, guys, this has been fun. Maybe I'll do more of these. We'll see how quickly I get around to editing this, I guess, and we'll go from there. But I have been Cam with the Big Bad Beetle Bros and Stronger Than Before, a Zeo Rewatch podcast. You can find everything that I do on projectlouder.net. You can search Big Bad Beetle Bros or Stronger Than Before on any podcasting app. You'll find all of my stuff on there. And you can find this and anything else Beetle Bros related on YouTube, as well as Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at either Beetle Bros Pod or Big Bad Beetle Bros. Pretty much anywhere. So thank you guys so much for sticking around for this. I've had a great time. I will be gushing about this Astro Megaship for as long as I physically can, because I don't think my OCD and ADHD are going to let me stop. So, thank you guys so much. I hope you have a great one. And yeah, we'll talk to you next time.